and a few other things. Please keep yourself on mute for the duration of the presentation. There will be a Q&A section at the end where you can unmute and ask questions, but for the presentation, please keep yourself on mute so everyone can hear clearly. And then lastly, we do have a live transcription that you can view by clicking the top of your screen. It says live on Otter. If you click that button, it will open a transcript for you. All right, so like I said, my name is Erica Rawls and I'm the Programs Associate at the Laundromat Project. And I'm joined by two of my colleagues and I will let them introduce themselves.
I can hop in. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Siavel Shipotenka. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the LP, working closely with Erica.
To find my unmute button. My name is Aisha Williams. I use she, her pronouns as well, and I am Deputy Director here at the Laundromat Project.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Grant, and I'm a local nonprofit here in Bed-Stuy.
Thank you, Grant. And if everyone wants to, you can go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat as well. Just to save time, we'll keep those to the chat and then continue on with our presentation. So we would like to begin this with a land acknowledgement. We at the Laundromat Project respectfully acknowledge that our primary location at 1476 Fulton Street in Brooklyn, New York, sits on the occupied and unceded lands of the Canarsie, who are part of the Munsee Lenape. We recognize them as the original stewards of this land and pay respects to their elders, past, present, and future. I invite you to join me in acknowledging the histories of land where you are currently gathered and pay respect and gratitude to its original stewards. And you can do so in the chat. Like I said, feel free to introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, if you're affiliated with an organization or joining as an individual, and how you heard about the Create Connect Fund. So again, thank you for joining us. Throughout this info session, we'll be walking you through a presentation with slides that will also be describing for you verbally. So this slide uses blue and white graphics and waves, which is a motif that will be used throughout the presentation. And it also includes a group of people gathered around a table doing an art activity that demonstrates the importance of community connection through creativity that we'd like to catalyze through this fund. So in the chat, we'll share the presentation slides if you'd like to follow along that way, and also a link to the application. And we can go ahead to the next slide.
Great. I think this is me. Sorry, I was dropping in the links in the chat. You should now have them, both the presentation and application. So hello again. The current slide is showing on the screen, shows the agenda for tonight. And we intend to share a little bit more on the Laundromat Project, which you may hear us refer to as the LP for short. Yeah, and this will be the grounding that we'll use. So we'll go through a little and share a little bit more about us as an organization, more about the program, eligibility, timeline and how to apply, application questions overview. So we'll run through the application live for you to see what to expect, and a little bit more about what we're looking for in applications. And after that, leave some space for you all to address or ask any questions that you may have after receiving and looking through all of this information.
And I will jump in and just give a little bit of background about the LP, who we are and what we do, and then turn it back to Siavel and Erica. But on the screen here, we have text that is our mission statement. And at the Laundromat Project, we advance artists and neighbors as change agents in their own communities. To give you an example of what our work looks like, what you'll see illustrated on this screen is a visual of a workshop that's taking place in front of Marmy Laundromat here in Bed-Stuy. And we were founded in 2005 in Bed-Stuy. Our founder, Risa Wilson, is a longtime resident of Bed-Stuy and has deep roots in the community and neighborhood. So in 2005, she started by popping up tables in front of laundromats and gathering artists together collectively to do workshops in front of laundromats. While we aren't currently functioning in a laundromat, the idea of a laundromat as a community space, a space of bringing folks together, is something that has sustained throughout the history of the organization. And so now metaphorically, the name serves the purpose of illustrating community, neighbors, folks coming together to engage with one another and build community. We are a Black rooted and POC centered organization. We provide training and resources to artists, to creative producers, to activists, and support community responsive public art projects that tackle issues such as food injustice, gentrification, climate change, and community safety. And I'll share a little bit more about Bed-Stuy and our move to Bed-Stuy and becoming rooted in the neighborhood. And I'm actually dialing in to this session from our space here, which we are very much looking forward to inviting folks into soon. But we, about 2 weeks before the city shut down, we signed a lease, a 10-year lease on a storefront. We are on Fulton Street between Tompkins and Kingston. And it's a 2,000 square foot space where we have our administrative operations as well as programming, all in this one single location. The idea is that we spent a lot of time just kind of moving around through the city and engaging in programming primarily in Bed-Stuy, in Harlem, and in the South Bronx, and decided that we really needed to deeply embed in a neighborhood and a community and build within that neighborhood and community. And so we came back home to Bed-Stuy, where we will be here, like I said, for 10 years and beyond, but really looking to build for the long term and grow and learn within community. And I will turn it back to Ciavel to give you a little bit of information about the CNC Fund.
Actually, I'll jump in.
Oh, Erica, sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so thank you, Aisha. So we hope that gave you a bit more information about who we are at the Laundromat Project, and now we can kind of jump in to what the Bed-Stuy Create Connect Fund is. So it's a community microgrant fund, and we are funding creative proposals that are rooted in community, foster connections, ignite conversations, and/or collaborations. This is something we want to do to support and see the creative ideas and civic actions of artists, cultural practitioners, community builders, organizers, and makers in Bed-Stuy. So the grants will consist of $1,000 of funding, and we'll be funding up to 12 proposals. So each proposal will get $1,000. And on this slide, you'll see a illustration of people gathered on a stoop, a black and white illustration. Also, again, showing the different ways community can take shape. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so who and what are eligible for the Bed-Stuy Create Connect Fund? So self-organized groups or collectives are eligible, and this means any sort of informal group, like a sewing club or a writers group, can apply, as well as formal organizations. So block associations and tenants associations, as well as 501c3s or nonprofits, though we will prioritize groups and organizations that traditionally have less access to funding. Nonprofits are still eligible. And then lastly, individuals are eligible as long as the person who's applying and leading the proposal is at least 18 years old. And then we also ask that applicants either live, work, or are otherwise committed to and invested in Bed-Stuy. So living in Bed-Stuy, being currently located in Bed-Stuy is not a requirement of the fund, as long as you do have an investment in the neighborhood, since this is a hyper-local microgrant opportunity. That's really important to the opportunity. And then what do we fund? So proposals must be responsive to or centered within Bed-Stuy and focus on community building, community recovery, and collective wellness within the Bed-Stuy neighborhoods, as well as incorporate elements of art or creativity. So even if the proposal is virtual, it should still be engaging or impacting Bed-Stuy residents. And we can go to the next slide. So at the Laundromat Project, we have an expansive definition of art. So when we say the proposal should incorporate art and creativity, we mean everything from visual media, performing arts to healing, community organizing, cultural traditions and practices. And we do have a list of recipients from our last cycle. This is our second cycle of the fund. And so if you're interested in seeing what kinds of proposals we funded before, it's on our website, which I can share the link to in the chat. And you don't have to consider yourself an artist to apply, although we welcome artists, but it's not a requirement.
Great, and I'll jump in again with an eligible project. So we're thinking definitely solo production. So for example, I'm an artist and I'm looking for money for, I don't know, 50 canvases that have no sort of ripple effect within community and are kind of my own personal practice. Something like that that is insular is not eligible. You know, to the same extent, projects with no involvement, impact, or engagement with additional stakeholders or a broader community, and definitely projects or events or activities that require an admission or participation fee. So we're trying to, because it's the Bed-Stuy Create and Connect, we're hoping that these projects help community members connect with one another and for neighbors to build with one another and get to know one another. And so whatever barriers may present themselves in actually doing some of that is something that we'll consider ineligible. Great. And then also because we are an organization that is embedding into Bed-Stuy and we honor the past legacies and histories of the neighborhood, we're definitely seeing this fund as a way to prioritize and counter structural and systemic injustices in Bed-Stuy. So for that reason, we'll prioritize, you know, proposals that are led by folks that are born and raised in Bed-Stuy, generational Bed-Stuy residents who have lived 10+ years or more, you know, in the neighborhood, folks who identify as Black, Indigenous, Native, or people of color, folks, you know, within the disability community, including immunocompromised individuals and individuals who identify as LGBTQIA+.
So on this,
Sorry.
that's okay.
I couldn't find my mute. I'm like,
Oh, no. I could jump in if you want.
You want to jump in? Okay.
Yeah, sure. So how to apply to the application or to the fund. So we sent that link at the beginning. It's through an application called Submittable or a platform called Submittable. And you will go in there and we'll kind of run through that in the next step so you can see what that looks like. But this is a general timeline of the fund. So the applications have opened. They opened August 23rd. Tonight is the online info session, which, like I said, will be recorded and put on our YouTube channel after tonight. And we'll have 3 application support workshop sessions, September 9th, 15th, and 16th. So these are sessions that LP staff will be available to support on whatever specific questions you might have pertaining to your proposal or your application. And we will block off individualized time for you or your group. So we really hope that people sign up for these and they're really for you and you can kind of dictate or or make it what you need in that moment. And we're happy to support you in whatever way would be most helpful. So you can find the links to register for those on the page on our website, which I can also send in the chat. And then the applications will close September 19th, and award notifications will go out in the beginning of October. Well, so now we'll go on to what it actually looks like to apply and kind of run through this. So when you open the link to apply on Submittable, you'll actually have to create an account. And if you're applying on behalf of an organization or you're supporting someone who maybe needs some technical assistance or computer assistance who is using the fund, we do ask that you make the account information for Submittable, the contact information for the person that will be leading the proposal, so that we're able to connect with them directly, even if you're assisting them. So when you sign up for, when you open that application, you will have to create a Submittable account. And then it'll take you in, you'll put in some of your basic contact information, and then we're just asking you for some of that as well here. So your name, address and phone number, email address and phone number. And then we'd love to know if you're applying as an individual or a business, organization, association, or other kind of group. One thing to note is that you, for some of these quick answers, you can just kind of put them in and then save frequently. But for some of the longer responses, you might want to open a Google Doc or a Word doc and draft responses separately. It might feel a little easier, and those save more frequently automatically. And then you can just pop those in once you have everything drafted out. So yeah, so we'd love to hear like who you are and who your group is, and then why you're interested in the fund and what your connection is to the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood. And then the next section is about the actual proposal itself. So we'd love sort of like a short statement, or it can be a written statement or a video statement on your proposal and why you're applying for the funds. So we have the option to submit your response to this question, like I said, written, and you can submit that file as a PDF or as a video statement, and you can submit that as an upload as an MP4, or if you'd rather share a Vimeo link or YouTube link, you can just put that link in a PDF, save it as a PDF, and upload that file as well. So you have an option there, whatever you're more comfortable with. But here we really just want to know what it is you're applying to do. And then the next question, defining your proposal's community or audience, and what is your relationship to the audience or communities you will work with. Since this is Bed-Stuy focused, we know that your community will be Bed-Stuy specific, and we're hoping to get a little more specific with this question. So are you applying, hoping to engage a specific nursing home community or specific youth at a particular school in Bed-Stuy? So the more specific you can be with this answer, the more helpful it will be for us reviewing applications. If you do have any collaborators or partners, you can share, though it's not required. And then we'd like to know how your proposal will take shape, whether it's virtual, in person, or maybe a combination of both. And then since we're still in a pandemic, what COVID-19 precautions you might be taking. And then a loose timeline of your proposal as well. And I just want to make sure I note that you have a year to complete the proposal, and that it says 2023, which is a typo on my end. I'll fix that. But a year, I'm like, what year are we in? But a year would be 2022. So you should be able to complete your proposal within the next year after you're awarded the funding. And it doesn't have to be a really detailed timeline, but if it's an event, we'd like to know relatively like when it will be taking place. And then just an open space to elaborate if there's anything else we should know. And as Siavel mentioned, there is a priority section, and you can opt to self-identify into those categories that she named, or you can decide not to say. That just means we can't prioritize your application. At the end, there's some optional demographic questions. These are all optional and they won't have any effect on your application. And that is basically it for submittable.
Awesome, thank you. And then I'll just build on what Erica has shared previously, but here are some of the common things that we're looking for in applications. The current slide shares just some key things that we're looking for in application. In terms of feasibility, we're looking for proposals that can happen within a year. We also appreciate applications that are clear and easily understood. And we appreciate applications that definitely have a clear and easily a clear target audience. So for example, they're not looking to just invest or build with Bed-Stuy, but perhaps there are different pockets of community that they're really intentional about. Maybe it's like community gardens, or maybe it's like deli owners, or maybe, you know, it's a more like a narrowed down community that they're looking to build with. We also like projects that are responsive to local culture and community of Bed-Stuy. So for example, things that are relevant to the neighborhood or relevant to a common cultural practice within the neighborhood will definitely get a plus from us, you know, and then it's also a plus if it examines some sort of issues relating to collective wellness or resilience or recovery, just because we are still very much in a pandemic and trying to all collectively recover. So are definitely looking to support projects that are also looking to do this within the neighborhood. Yeah, lastly, you know, we're also looking for projects that are intentional and have thoughtful collaboration, where participants are not just audience members, but maybe they are the ones who decide what the end project or what the end product or end event looks like for this, for whatever project it is that you are applying with. Now I believe we'll be jumping into Q&A.
So if you have a question, you can feel free to drop in the chat or go off mute, and we'd be happy to answer anything that comes up.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, please feel free to, you know, Erica just dropped our website. We do have a list of previous projects that have been selected for the funds, and things have been from like bicycle rides to murals at community gardens. And so it's really just a variety of projects. And so I highly encourage you all to explore that page and see what other projects have been selected, just to get a better sense of an idea of what it is that we're looking to support.
Hi, my name's Angela. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question about the prioritization. The way that you all listed it, like individuals born and or raised in Bed-Stuy, individuals identify as Black or Indigenous, so forth, is that the order in which you are like prioritizing the applicants? Like, do we have to be born and or raised in Bed-Stuy and or live in Bed-Stuy in order to apply? Or is it like one of these things, one of these bullets?
Right. Yeah. So no, yeah, it's not in any particular order. Any of these will be prioritized. So if you self-identify into any of these categories, your application will be prioritized. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and if you live outside of Bed-Stuy, as long as the project is based within the neighborhood, then I think it definitely qualifies. I think it's really just a plus in case you identify as one of these bullet points.
I also have one other question about the target audience. So does there have to be like a specific number or a specific member of like audience participation from the community in Bed-Stuy, or could it be, you know, just as long as you do have participations from members or residents of the Bed-Stuy community?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that question. There's no minimum number of participants. It can be a smaller engagement or a larger engagement. Let's see, I'm trying to think of an example. Like CVL said, we are funding a memorial community bike ride. So that's a larger event that's going to take, they have permits and things like that. It's open to anyone who registers. And then there are smaller, more intimate events as well. Someone did an exhibition in their apartment in their NYCHA building. And that was really for like neighbors and residents. So there's no requirement on the number of people that can participate, as long as it is just engaging people in a deeper way, as opposed to an artist having like a solo exhibition and inviting an audience where there's not as much participation or engagement, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much, Erica. I had
You're
one
welcome.
more question.
Yes,
So
go ahead.
I'm dominating. The other question that I had was, do you all require a budget? Like, do you all want to see, hey, I'm going to be taking this amount of money and going toward marketing to the members of the neighborhood, or I'm taking this amount of money for supplies, I'm taking this amount of money for, paying for help or things of that such for this application?
Yeah, I can take that. We do have a question where it just asks where if you were to receive these funds, how would they be allocated? Just out of a sense of curiosity, but as such, we aren't requiring, we don't keep tabs on how you administer the money, nor ask for receipts once the program or the project is complete, if that helps. I think it's mostly just to get a sense of how you see using these funds. And if you want to go into depth, then feel free, but it is not like weighed against you or heavily examined when looking into your application.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just expand on that. Yeah, I think, it depends on the application and the proposal, but sometimes if the proposal's a really long-term initiative, say, that isn't necessarily like a one-off event, it could be helpful for the review process, for the reviewers to understand like, oh, this is how the money is supporting this long-term initiative. For example, we funded Meditation for Black Lives, which does meditation programming in Bed-Stuy in public places. And this is something that is not like a one-off event. So they wanted support with training teachers and building out a curriculum, an anti-racist curriculum. So it was helpful for the review process just to have a better sense, like, oh, this isn't an event, so what is the, what is the funding for? But like CVL said, it's not required to have a budget where you're laying out exactly what's being allocated for what. It's just kind of up to your discretion if you feel like that would be helpful, just to give us more information when you're applying.
So Erica, I'm just want to touch back on the example that you used. So you're saying that, so this meditation process, let's say it was like a 3-week series or something like that, like they came in once a week for meditation and so forth, that support around her curriculum building or training for yoga, meditation teachers and so forth, was this like extra funding, or this is just like how she broke down to show like, hey, this is what I'm going to be using the funding for over this period of time?
Yeah, so this was in response to the question of like, why are you applying for these funds? Like what, yeah, why are you applying for the funds? And meditating for Black Lives is an ongoing initiative. So it wasn't like for a specific like timeline of events. If that answers your question.
Yes, it does.
I'm gonna stop there and make sure. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Erica.
I have a question. Are you, let me see, how can I phrase this? So I received another micro grant for a project, a mural project that is also going to be collaborative with clients of the North Brooklyn Coalition for Family Justice. And since partnering with the coalition, the project has become a little bit bigger and more long-term than my initial ideal, my initial proposal. So I guess my question is, are you open to funding projects that have received other grants? As long as it's okay with the other organization, like, can I put funding together to create the bigger project?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was a quick one. You can definitely do that. Yeah, we know $1,000 isn't a lot and it might be suited to a smaller project, but for bigger projects, we know people might need other support.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Grant and Nehemiah, if you have any questions, also feel free to, speak them into the room or drop them in the chat. But we are also available via phone call and email in case after this session you have something that was not addressed, or a question that you have had more time to simmer on. Our inboxes and phones are always open and here to support.
Okay, I have one more question, and then I think I'm gonna head out. The dates for September 9th and so forth for the application process, like workshops, is this going to be like just if we have questions and we're already filling out our application and so we can enter, or each of those dates is like a development upon the other date of application assistance?
Okay, great question. Yeah, sorry if that wasn't clear. Each date is like totally kind of standalone and separate. They're not building on each other. We just wanted to provide different dates and times so that if one didn't work for someone, there is another option for people to attend. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I didn't realize I was mute. I was going, Okay, thank you so much, Erica and Chevelle. Chevelle. And Aisha, thank you so much for taking the time out. Have a blessed rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thanks for attending.
Hey y'all, this is Nehemiah. I don't have any questions right now, but I'm letting everything you said settle in. And if anything comes up for me, I will definitely reach out to you all via email and plan to attend the application workshops as well. So thank you for the info session. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you. All right. Well, Grant, if you don't have any questions, we can wrap up. I know we ended a bit early.
No questions. You were very thorough. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Great. Thank you so much for both of you for attending.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Night,
You too.
folks.
Good night, everyone.